A long walk to freedom. Introducing Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, a name synonymous with the fight for justice and equality, is a figure whose legacy transcends borders and generations. Nelson Mandela was a man who changed the world. His journey from a rural village to becoming the first black president of South Africa is nothing short of extraordinary. He fought for equality and justice. His weapon? Peace. Mandela believed that true change could only come through non-violent means, even when faced with brutal oppression. Mandela's story is told in his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom. This book offers a deep dive into his life, his struggles, and his unwavering commitment to his cause. It's a story of courage, sacrifice, and forgiveness. Mandela's ability to forgive those who wronged him is a testament to his incredible strength of character. It's a story that continues to inspire millions. His life and legacy serve as a beacon of hope for those fighting for justice around the world. Mandela was born in South Africa in 1918. Growing up in a rural village, he was exposed to the harsh realities of racial discrimination from a young age. He grew up under a system called apartheid. This system was designed to maintain white supremacy and control over the black majority. Apartheid was a system of racial segregation and discrimination. It permeated every aspect of life, from education to healthcare, and dictated where people could live and work. It said that black people were inferior to white people. This ideology was enforced through laws and brutal police tactics. Mandela knew this was wrong. He could not stand by and watch his people suffer under such an unjust system. He saw the injustices faced by his people. The daily humiliations, the lack of opportunities, and the constant threat of violence. He decided to fight back. Mandela joined the African National Congress and became a leader in the struggle against apartheid. He dedicated his life to dismantling apartheid and creating a free and equal South Africa. His leadership and vision were instrumental in mobilizing the masses. His journey was long and difficult. Mandela spent 27 years in prison, much of it on Robben Island, where he endured harsh conditions and isolation. He faced imprisonment, violence, and the loss of loved ones. Yet, he remained steadfast in his belief that freedom and equality were worth any sacrifice. But through it all, Mandela never gave up hope. His spirit remained unbroken, and his resolve only grew stronger with each passing year. He never stopped believing in the power of peace and forgiveness. Mandela's release from prison marked the beginning of a new era for South Africa, one where reconciliation and unity were possible. In 1994, Nelson Mandela was elected as the first black president of South Africa. His presidency was a symbol of the triumph of the human spirit over adversity. Mandela's legacy is celebrated worldwide. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 alongside F.W. de Klerk for their efforts to end apartheid and establish a multiracial democracy. Even after his passing in 2013, Nelson Mandela's influence continues to be felt. His life serves as a powerful reminder of the impact one person can have on the world. Mandela's words and actions continue to inspire future generations. His message of peace, forgiveness, and equality remains as relevant today as it was during his lifetime. As we remember Nelson Mandela, we are reminded of the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what is right. His legacy will forever be a guiding light for humanity.
The shadow of apartheid, a nation divided. Apartheid, a word that means apartness in Afrikaans, was a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination in South Africa that lasted from 1948 until the early 1990s. Imagine a world where your skin color determined your entire life, where the color of your skin dictated not just your social status, but your very existence, where you could live, work, and even love. Interracial relationships were forbidden, and those who dared to defy these laws faced severe consequences. That was apartheid in South Africa, a system designed to keep the races apart and maintain white supremacy. Black South Africans were treated as second-class citizens in their own land. They were forced to live in overcrowded townships, far from the cities where they worked. From the moment they were born, they faced discrimination and segregation. Education was separate and unequal. with black children receiving far fewer resources than their white counterparts. Separate schools, hospitals, and even benches in the park. Every aspect of life was divided along racial lines. Black South Africans were denied basic human rights. They couldn't vote. They had no political representation and no voice in the government that ruled over them. They couldn't own land in most areas. The government designated only certain areas for black ownership, often the least fertile and most undesirable lands. The pain of apartheid ran deep. It wasn't just a political system, it was a personal and emotional trauma that affected every aspect of life. It tore families apart and fueled anger and resentment. Many families were separated as people were forced to move to different areas based on their race. The white minority government used violence and intimidation to maintain control. Police brutality was common, and any form of dissent was met with harsh punishment. They imprisoned and tortured those who dared to speak out. Many activists and leaders were jailed for their opposition to apartheid, often under brutal conditions. This system was morally wrong. Nelson Mandela knew it. The world knew it. International pressure and internal resistance grew over the years. And so, the fight for freedom began. The struggle against apartheid was long and arduous, but it was driven by a deep desire for justice and equality. The world watched as South Africans, led by figures like Nelson Mandela, fought for their rights and their dignity.
Early life, lasting values, the making of a leader. Mandela wasn't born into a life of privilege. He came from humble beginnings in a small village where resources were scarce and opportunities were limited. He grew up in a small village in the Eastern Cape, surrounded by the natural beauty of the land, but also the harsh realities of rural life. His father was a chief, a position of respect and responsibility, but he died when Mandela was young, leaving the family to fend for themselves. Mandela was raised by his mother, a strong and resilient woman, who ensured he attended a local missionary school. It was a place where he first encountered the broader world beyond his village. It was there that he began to understand the power of education. The lessons he learned were not just academic, they were lessons in life, in justice, and in the importance of standing up for what is right. Education became his weapon against ignorance and injustice. He devoured books and knowledge, understanding that education was the key to unlocking a better future for himself and his people. He went on to study law and became a lawyer, a profession that would allow him to challenge the injustices he saw around him. He wanted to use his knowledge to fight for the rights of his people, to be a voice for the voiceless, and to stand up against the oppressive system of apartheid. He witnessed firsthand the brutal realities of apartheid. The systemic racism, the violence, and the dehumanization of black South Africans were stark and undeniable. He saw the poverty, the inequality, and the suffering it caused. Families torn apart, communities living in squalor, and a nation divided by hate and fear. These experiences fueled his determination to fight for a better future. He became deeply involved in activism, organizing protests, and speaking out against the injustices of the apartheid regime. A future where all South Africans would be treated equally, regardless of their race. Mandela's vision was one of unity, of a nation where diversity was celebrated and everyone had the opportunity to thrive.
Section 4. Joining the Fight, the African National Congress. Mandela knew he couldn't fight this system alone. He joined the African National Congress, or ANC. The ANC was a political party fighting against apartheid. They believed in peaceful resistance. They organized protests, boycotts, and strikes. Mandela quickly rose through the ranks of the ANC. He became a powerful speaker and leader. He inspired people with his courage and determination. He called for an end to segregation and discrimination. He demanded equal rights for all South Africans. The government saw Mandela and the ANC as a threat. They tried to silence them. They banned the ANC and arrested many of its leaders. But the movement grew stronger. The world was watching, and support for the anti-apartheid struggle was growing.
Section 5. A voice silenced, imprisonment, and global resistance. In 1964, Mandela and several other ANC leaders were arrested. They were sentenced to life in prison for sabotage and other crimes against the state. Mandela was sent to Robben Island, a notorious prison off the coast of Cape Town. The world was outraged. People protested in the streets. They demanded Mandela's release and the end of apartheid. Nelson Mandela became a global symbol of resistance. His image was everywhere, on posters, T-shirts and murals. Despite being imprisoned, Mandela's spirit remained unbroken. He continued to fight for freedom from behind bars. He became a powerful symbol of hope for millions of South Africans and people around the world.
Section 6. Robben Island, a crucible of resilience. Robben Island was designed to break the spirits of those imprisoned there. The conditions were harsh, the work was backbreaking, but Mandela and his comrades refused to be broken. They organized political discussions and continued their education. They sang freedom songs to keep their spirits high. They turned their prison cells into classrooms and centers of resistance. Mandela understood that his jailers held him captive physically, but his mind remained free. He used this time to study, to reflect, and to grow as a leader. He knew that one day he would be free, and he wanted to be ready to lead his people to a better future.